permission to speak. Shadows hide you. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you. Never lose hope.
Here, Fred Shadows.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, friend.
Welcome to episode 455 of Concede, our Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, July 10th, 2024 in the evening. Coming to you from Numbergon, Ohio, it's me, Edelweiss. From North Rend, Massachusetts, we have Wicked Good.
Hi.
From Teldrassil, California, we have Megesa.
Hello.
And from all around the world, we have you, dear listeners. This week's episode is brought to you by our producers, Number Theory, Kresh, Beef Squatch, David P., Walu, Jeremy T., Bottlecaps, Grumpy Monk, The Burger Club, Kirk Regan, Crisley Bear, Tyler Knife, and SSJ5 Goku. And by our patrons of the week, Absacold and Cal. You can go to patreon.com/coinconcede to get perks like a thank you at the top of the show, early access to new episodes, one-on-one coaching sessions, and of course, help support the show in the process. If you would like to support the show but cannot do so monetarily, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast feed of choice, as it always helps other people find the show. And we have a special announcement this episode, which is that we got a bunch of standard pre-purchase bundles to give out, courtesy of Blizzard, and we want to reward our listeners. So each bundle comes with 60 Perils in Paradise packs, a Hakar the Houndmaster card pack, and 2 random non-golden legendaries from Perils in Paradise. So listen carefully, because here's how you can get them. 1. Join our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. We'll be giving away 1 bundle code to a listener who enters on Discord before Saturday, July 20th. Instructions will be in the hashtag announcements channel. Number 2, become a patron. We will give another bundle code away to a random patron and notify the winner by email and Discord, again, on Saturday, July 20th. 3, tune in to our stream of the podcast on Thursday night, July 18th, starting around 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll give away 2 codes to viewers, and you can find us at twitch.coinconcede.com. And then lastly, Megesa is going to be doing a Twitter giveaway, so follow her at Megesa_8 and keep a lookout for that.
And very important on the Patreon giveaway is that there is a free tier, and that will be eligible for the giveaway. So there's no purchase necessary to enter. So
Yeah.
we would love it if you contributed to the Patreon, but you don't need to pay any money to enter. All you need to do is follow at the free tier, and you'll be considered entered into that giveaway.
Yeah, very important note. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't know that little fact. So that brings us to Life and Ladder. For me, I've just been doing quests in Hearthstone. I'm gonna be honest, I can't say how much is meta related versus just lining up with the Elden Ring DLC and like the meh period of a Hearthstone expansion, as we always get to, right? It's late stage Hearthstone expansion, and the combination of those two things just means I'm doing a lot more Elden Ring than Hearthstone. I'm really excited for the new expansion, so fear not. I'm not falling off. I'm keeping an eye on things, that decks I'm ready to build. Very enthusiastic about all those possibilities. It's going to be tough because every class has basically twice as many cards, and that is just kind of mind-boggling for possibilities. But yeah, I'm kind of taking it easy before I plunge back in. And I've also been relaxing with just some anime lately. They got sick, which means I got sick, because when you have a baby who, puts everything in their mouth, puts her fingers in her mouth, and then puts her fingers in my mouth, it's pretty impossible to avoid getting the same illnesses. So, yeah, been a bit under the weather. Fortunately, I was able to record tonight, but still not 100%. So, yeah, it's nice when I can just kind of lay down with the AC on, turn off my brain, watch some anime. That's my sort of peak relaxation activity. So, how about you, Wicked?
Well, bonjour. I got back from Montreal on Friday. That is the extent of the French that I learned while I was there. No, I learned ouvert, which means open. That's all I learned. I don't speak a word of French, and that was interesting. We were up there. We went up to Maine and to Montreal to look at schools for my oldest, who is going into her senior year of high school. So we did Maine the first couple days, then we drove up to Montreal. We went through what is probably, I mean, it's not probably, it is the smallest border crossing that exists, because it was one lane in each direction. It was like in the middle of some like farm town in Vermont, and then all of a sudden there were just fields and farms everywhere. Um, but I mean, it was very nice, aside from the fact that all the signs were in French and I don't speak any French. I mean, people will definitely speak to you in English if you speak to them in English. Like almost everyone's bilingual up there, but it's a little bit disconcerting, especially because I'm not exactly the world's greatest traveler. But we had a good time. There was a jazz festival going on there. Apparently it's a famous jazz festival. None of us care about jazz, so that was kind of lost on us. But had we known that Montreal Comic Con was going to be starting the day that we left, we might have stayed an extra day. But so it goes. But we were going up there, and it was pretty clear that I was not getting any souvenirs, because like my wife is super excited because she speaks French, and she's like, "Oh, I want to go to Canadian Savers and I want to get a whole bunch of books in French." She bought like the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy in French and like a whole bunch of other stuff. And then it was very clear that I was not buying it, because even if there was anything I was going to get, it was all in French, right? Like we went to a bunch of bookstores, like they had Small World of Warcraft, but it's in French, and I'm not playing it in French. So, the one thing that they do have in English there are magic cards. So, so my wife was like, it's fine if you want to just make those your souvenirs. That's fine. So we found a couple of stores, and I made a couple of purchases, and I ended up coming back with another deck. So because that's how I am now. But we had a good time. We ate pretty well. We went to this place called, what's relevant for this podcast, we went to this place called Schwartz's, which is a famous deli up in Montreal. And they basically, it's not quite pastrami, but it's smoked meat. And we just ordered like a plate of meat with some bread for the three of us. And they just brought out a plate of meat, and then we just consumed all of it between the three of us, and it was delicious. I was a little upset that they only had yellow mustard and not deli mustard, but I'll let it slide because the meat was so good. As far as Hearthstone is concerned, I have also been kind of on a break, and I've been feeling better about it since the hotfix where they banned Splish Splash Whelp. Spoilers for news, but I'll spoil my own segment. It's fine. Because like the Druid mirrors were just like, they were too much, and it felt like you kind of had to play Druid in order to climb, and even then it was like a crapshoot because there were so many mirrors. Once they banned that, I've been finding my footing a little bit better with Death Knight. It's as close to a control deck as I feel like I can play right now. It's still a mid-range pile of nonsense, but at least it's a control skewing mid-range pile of nonsense. So I kind of feel like I understand what to do better. And I did have a game yesterday where I queued into one Brian Kibler.
I think I might have heard of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Famous dragon connoisseur Brian Kibler, who was playing Kangor Paladin.
Of course he was.
Of course he was. And I may have ruined his day because so he was on that. He had a Kangor and some other ginormous minion on the board, and I had played a Reska and Dead Air into it, and then took both of those, and all of a sudden the Kangor was mine, and that was the game ended the next turn. So I felt bad, but also like that's kind of what I had to do to win that game. So it is what it is. But I've had like kind of a ridiculous win rate with the Death Knight. I'm actually just bringing up HS Replay to look at it. It's nothing special. It's just the same like Rainbow Excavate Death Knight that everyone's playing, but I've been doing reasonably well with it. It's like, yeah, like I have like 72%, 73% win rate over 22 games.
Not bad.
And that's not including things that I've been playing on my phone. So It's the other thing that I'm noticing, because I'm at 10x this month, and I'm not seeing the kind of jank at the Diamond 5 floor that I used to, because you're just queuing against people who are at the same MMR as you. So you're not queuing into as many people as that are like, oh, I'm at rank 5 floor, so I'm just going to play nonsense because this is my chance to goof off. Like, you get some of those, they're kind of sprinkled in, right? But it's not like exclusively what I'm playing against to get up out of that. So it felt like there was less achieving escape velocity once I found a deck that I gelled with. But also, it's just been working really well for me, and I can figure it out. So hopefully I'll be able to get myself to Legend before the expansion drops. If not, it's not a big deal. I think I'm sitting at like Diamond 2 right now, just because I'm trying not to play too much. Same reason as Adol, just like I'm trying not to burn out. But at least I'm doing well with the deck, and I feel like I don't know how that I would go so far to say enjoy it, but I certainly tolerate it enough to keep playing it, which is better than I was feeling before Splish Splash went away. So, I'll take those.
The flip side of you don't face the people playing jank at D5 as much might be that you don't face the people just try-harding at D1. Just like, must play the best deck to get that last thing. And there is still apparently you are less likely to queue into someone at Legend if you're not at Legend still, even though you can.
Yeah. Though I guess my experience at D1 is usually that I'm also playing against random nonsense. Like D4 through D2 is generally like people are tryharding. And then once you get up to D1, typically you're playing against other people who've gotten to Legend and now they're goofing off. So I would expect that, especially being at a reasonably high MMR for 10x, I should see less of that too. But we'll find out probably on my stream tomorrow, because that's probably what I'm doing. So we'll see.
Well, I definitely have. I know my on HS Replay on the website, right? If you go to the replays, they have your win rate over your past 100 games, and for a while it was like 60 something for like a couple weeks in a row, and this was very flattering. And now it's like 44 or something like that. It has been for the past week. So I did have a little bit of success with Overheal Priest before the Splish Splash Whelp ban, because it really was targeted to Druid. This was a list from Homie Was Taken, it had the most popular version. Really kind of a slower resource focused deck, but not exactly a control deck. You have the Injured Hauler to just obliterate. If you get it and you protect it, you can prevent a board-based deck from ever getting on the board again, sometimes including like giants from a Painlock or something. Or sometimes you can Hedonist, but a lot of it is like you Puppet Theater the Druid stuff back at them. After the patch, I was still playing some of it. I ran into a player, Earleg, who I've seen.
Earleg.
Yeah. Who was known for Tempo Priest decks, like homebrew Tempo Priest decks. And they were also playing an Overheal Priest, but of course had gone for like Drifters and like Ambient Light Spawn and all this fast minion stuff with still Puppet Theaters, I think, for the Druids. And I got obliterated. Also, I misplayed terribly, but I don't think it would have helped. I was just like too busy thinking about their deck and not busy thinking about the actual game that I was playing. So I friended them after. Luckily, they accepted and didn't think I was about to flame them. And got the list and had a little more success with that, just because I think it gels better with my style of play, and also because around this point there was no more Druids, and I think this was a little better suited to things other than Druids. But at a certain point, I was getting frustrated. I switched back to Zarimi. They've done okay with that. I had tried a little hand buff Paladin, wasn't really gelling for me. With the Zarimi, I had one game where it turns out that if you stick an Amonthul against an Excavate Rogue, who had all kinds of random nonsense, because that's every single game with an Excavate Rogue, but I stuck an Amonthul, and then I played Marin, Zerog's Crown, got 2 Leroys, copied a Leroy, so that was 20 face. And then I had another 6 in hand. It actually didn't, they had more than 20 health, but killed them the next turn, because they would have had to clear everything and heal in order to, and they couldn't do all 3. I also had a game against a Insanity Lock where I had one of those, like, you take a screenshot of this boards, and I took a screenshot of it where I had, like, all the drifters and the super big board, and it's turn 4, and then they go pop, car, crescendo, crescendo. But I still won. Because they had used their stuff. And so I actually had time to rebuild. Because they had already used, like, I can't remember what I did to get rid of all the 3/3s. I think at that point I was able to just Zarimi and ignore all of their 3/3s. Because that was the only way that they could beat me from there. So, anyway, in terms of life things, it's really hot here. It is as hot in Northern California as in Southern California right now, which is just rude. Unless you're, like, in San Francisco, where there's fog always. Or it's like merely hot in San Francisco, scorching elsewhere in the Bay Area. So luckily I have some air conditioning, but not in the room where we're recording right now. So this is interesting. It's like 100 degrees out there.
So what you're saying is they've turned Marin County into Marin County? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm sorry to everyone who lives here. It's my fault, because they wanted to make it appropriate for me to get into the spirit of the expansion. Yeah.
That is a hell of a promo, I'll say. You know, changing the weather. I didn't know that Blizzard had a weather machine, but, you know.
If any game company did.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, just wedding prep stuff, and hopefully mostly getting things done. My mom said to me, she asked if my partner thinks that she's like a bridezilla mother-in-law. And I, before I could come up with anything to say in response to this, she goes, because I'm nothing compared to some people. And I was just like, well, he knows that. She's been like, very much, I'm not gonna push anything on them. I'm not gonna push anything on them. But also I have like 5 suggestions for you real fast. And here's a bunch of links. So, but mostly it's just down to decorating and stuff now, so shouldn't be too difficult.
Well, God willing, you will get through that in one piece. But... yeah,
the problem is that my mom and my partner have very different like decision-making styles, where my mom likes to really think about every possibility and look at everything and like look for the best bargain and blah, blah, and my partner just like wants to make a decision already and gets very frustrated. So then they frustrate each other. So then I have to be like the go-between. Like talk to one of them, talk to the other. They like will collaborate. They actually get along very well, but the little friction on this part.
Well, we'll take your mind off of that by talking about some Hearthstone. What do you say?
Sounds great.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
All right, so we, as we alluded to, we had a surprise hotfix that started off the week. And, and we didn't even get to, we have recorded since anomalies have come and gone, by the way. So let's just acknowledge that. because we pre-recorded because I was going on this trip, and also we had the reveals. We pre-recorded last Sunday, and then we got the news on Monday morning. We found out Monday morning, and then the news dropped on Tuesday that anomalies were coming in for a week. So anomalies have come, anomalies have gone. I was not a fan. I know some people love it, some people hate it. That was also not helping me wanting to queue with Druid everywhere. And now that that's gone, you know, that everything feels like it's a little bit better. It feels like that old fable of like the guy who thinks that his house is too small, so the rabbi tells him to bring in all of his friends and neighbors, and then when he leaves, like the house feels bigger. Right, like it's gonna be, that might be how it is, but in any event, so we had a small server-side hotfix with a couple of bans and a couple of bug fixes. Splish Splash Whelp was banned in standard. Dev comment is, since our last balance patch, Druid has emerged as a warping force in the meta as both power and play experience outlier. We're banning Splish Splash Whelp as one of the class's strongest cards for accelerating them to their early power plays. This is a temporary emergency action that we're taking until we're able to reevaluate and adjust in our next planned balance patch after the launch of Perils in Paradise. Any cards that are weakened at that time will get our usual dust refund treatment. So that is to say that there is no refund now for this being banned, but presumably this card or something else, it might get, Splish Splash might get brought back in, and other things might get nerfed. They're not really saying what the balance patch changes are going to be, but there will be balance there will be dust refunds for whatever gets nerfed when they bring Splish Splash Whelp. That is hard to say repeatedly. That's like she sells seashells by the seashore.
And you can't just say whelp because there's so many whelps in this game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like that. Even in that deck, there are multiple whelps. So once that goes back in, then there will be dust refunds for whatever does end up getting nerfed. But in Twist, Thorum was temporarily removed due to a bug. He's going to come back in the hero pool with patch 30, which is for the new expansion. There was a bug in Twist where some heroes sometimes had the wrong health, and they fixed some crashes in Battlegrounds. Now, I will say I've seen very few druids since this banning. I've seen a couple, and I saw that there was somebody who got to like 180 something legend with a ramp druid, but in general, it's been fairly druid free. It's been more druid. It's more been Death Knight, Rogue, Paladin, and then the occasional hunter, the occasional priest for me, at least the MMRs that I'm playing at. So
I did run into one druid, and this is apparently unintended. This is a bug where they discovered a Splish Splash Whelp off of a cactus construct.
Oh yeah.
So that worked out well for them. Yeah.
That would make me salty. I'm pretty sure. I would be unhappy if that happened to me. But yeah, it has been as intended, and the metas seem to have felt a little bit more balanced since this one change. They got rid of the outlier, but so and they did have a big pop up to the team's credit. And I saw it on every device that I logged into for the first time that I had logged into Constructed. There was a huge pop up that said Splish Splash Whelp is banned. So good on them for doing that, because that could be a very confusing experience. There were some people who said that they were playing before and after, and all of a sudden, like in between games, like their deck was invalid, which would be, I would imagine would be very confusing. But luckily, they have the pop up for the next time they logged in. There was another update on bot bans. So since last month's update, we've actioned over 261,000 additional accounts for botting. In 29.6, we also introduced system changes to combat bots and other exploitive gameplay patterns on a more regular, proactive basis. So the battle continues. 261,000 is a lot of bots, but it's whack-a-mole. You knock those down, they get back up again. But it's good to see them continuing to be proactive and trying to keep the environment free as best as they can. And then we got our Tuesday Twist Hero update. Again, Thorum being banned. His health is staying the way that it is. Halvaria, Guff, Liadrin, Marin, and Nazoth have all gone down to 25 health. Queen Ajara went from 38 to 35. King Crush from 30 to 28. Sargeras, Rafam, and Omu all went up to 50. Patches. Oh, and the Lich King went up to 50 as well. Patches, Sir Finley, and Nozdormu went up to 45. Illidan went down to 35, and Zyrella went back down to 30. So it's amazing what a deck change would be, that all of a sudden Lich King went from one of the best decks in the meta to he needs 50 health to be competitive. So that's really just around the changes that they made to the deck list. So it's interesting how that's much more effective than the health changes, and hopefully they'll be able to find a way to maybe make changes to the deck list without having to do a client patch in the future. But I mean, that would, I imagine that's going to be a challenge, but that seems like it's much more effective than just tweaking the health. But they use the tools that they have available. And finally, we have a shop update. The one major one is that there is a new hero portrait for Warlock, Legion Godfrey, which is $9.99 USD or 1,000 runestones. So if that is something that is of interest to you, go and check that out in the store. That also comes with 5 packs, but no card back. And that's going to do it for news. So we can just go on and then move up to tournaments.
It's the Grand Tournament!
So we had skipped the Listener League stuff for last week, so this is filling in for that stuff. We had the quarterfinals and semifinals played, and the finals are going to be played right after we finish recording. So if you're watching the stream, stick around for that. If not, go check out the VOD. decks were submitted in games played before the Whelp ban on these other ones, and then resubmitted after for the finals because of the ban. Anomalies were in for part of this time, so didn't know that was happening. Sorry. Overall, for the pre-finals, Handbuff Paladin, again, most popular, along with Shopper DH at 5 each, and then Tempo Druid at 3, Excavate Rogue 2, Painlock 2, and then one of each, Coin Rogue, Gaslight Rogue, Insanity Warlock, Zarimi Priest, Rainbow Excavate DK, and Excavate Paladin. Check out the notes if you're curious what classes everyone brought, but Paladin was banned 7 times, Druid 2 times, and Rogue 2 times. And then our finals lineups, these kind of the most important. World 8 has Handbuff Paladin, Pirate Cycle Rogue, and Insanity Warlock. The Paladin is banned. And then SSJ5 Goku, Rainbow Excavate DK, Handbuff Paladin, and Excavate Rogue with the DK banned.
It's too bad in a way that the Paladin is banned, because it's also an interesting one with Tier, Living Horizon, Jitterbug. It has like a Divine Shield package. But we may see the Pirate Cycle Rogue, which utilizes raiding party. That it's kind of it has, of course, the Gaslight Gatekeeper, Sonya, Everything Must Go, Playhouse Giants. It has Zola. So I think the pirate is mainly just as another way to cycle here. We have SSJ5 Goku saying in the chat, I ain't messing with that Pally deck. I mean, fair.
But that's then, and we have some new cards to talk about between then and now. So we should definitely go and do that.
Alright, so since our last episode, there have been 4 class reveals. Now, one note if you're not listening to this live, as we're recording this, the Druid cards have not yet been revealed, so we won't be talking about those, but the rest of the classes have been. So we have Demon Hunter, Priest, Hunter, and Warrior to talk about. And I did want to quickly note, so we usually record these episodes after the cards have been released, and it's really nice to see what everyone's saying, all of our listeners are saying about it and stuff like that. So of course, right after we post the Shaman cards, which we pre-recorded, someone immediately pointed out in the Discord that all those 10-drop like giants will turn into Chained Guardians, because that's 11 cost. So that seems good with the evolving matching outfits card. Also, there are those games with like Jombray and Baby Bear, or Language Hacker and Housewife, or Day 9 and Rarin. Those videos are coming out. You should check out the Play Hearthstone channel on YouTube for them, because they're very fun. And the Frost spell that we like glossed over really fast that summons 2/2/4 taunts with Death Rattle, apparently with Hagatha, that's very, very good. So there's always going to be more to talk about for all of the classes that we talk about, and we can never say everything. And then something happens, like Wheel turns out to be good, or that no one anticipated. So, but we will start with Demon Hunter, which will probably entail a little bit of looking back at Shaman. It's very difficult because every card, in a sense, you have to think about like 3 classes for it, because there's the class it's in, there's the class that's getting it from their tourist, and then you're also thinking about the cards that you're getting from the next class. Anyway, so it's very difficult, but very fun to theorycraft all of this. So we have sort of 3 main themes here. Small pirates attacking is a major theme of the Demon Hunter set. So we had already seen Patches the Pilot, Battlecry, shuffle 6 parachutes into your deck that summon a 1/1 pirate with charge when drawn. But now we have, for example, Adrenaline Fiend. After a friendly pirate attacks, give your hero +1 attack this turn. That's a 2-mana 2/2. We have Dangerous Cliffside is a 4-mana location. Summon 2 1/1 pirates with charge. They go on either side of the location. After your hero attacks, reopen this. It has 3 durability. We have, for example, Sigil of Skydiving at the start of your next turn. Summon 3 1/1 pirates with charge. It's a 2-mana fell spell. So there's definitely a theme of small things attacking. And if you're doing that in Shaman, you have Carefree Cookie if you want to be doing that with. We were speculating on, will there be more tokens in Demon Hunter? Yes, there will be. The Adrenaline Fiend... Oh, no, it wasn't that one. Never mind, it was a different card. There's a neutral pirate card that gives... It's like after a pirate attacks, give it +1/+1. That's very misleading. It's like as the pirate attacks, give it +1/+1. So if you put that down, I think it's a 3-drop, and then you use like the Dangerous Cliffside, and then you attack with them. They'll be 2/2 by the time they connect face.
So it works more like Crusader Aura.
So it works more like Crusader Aura. Yeah. It's like after they start the attack, but before they connect, they get the +1/+1. So that was something I noticed when watching the John Bury Baby Bear games video today, which had a really good Priest Hunter game that we'll talk about in a little bit. We also have some sort of big attacks theme. So Skirting Death, 3-mana shadow spell, choose a minion. This turn your hero steals 4 attack from it. Climbing Hook is a 6-mana weapon, 5/2. Doesn't lose durability while you control a minion with 5 or more attack. We have All-Terrain Voidhound. I wish this thing had Rush. But it's a 7-mana 5/8 demon. Whenever this attacks, give your hero +5 attack this turn.
I think it's meant to be used with Cliff Dive, which is a 6-cost spell. Summon 2 minions from your deck and give them Rush. They go back at the end of your turn.
Yeah, there's definitely some sort of... I hope we finally get like a big demon that isn't just shoppers. I don't know if we are. But... if you get an Illidari Inquisitor with Cliff Dive, that's not bad. It already has Rush, but it gets to hit face and it goes back. You can do it again. Who cares?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you summon Magtheridon, it just goes dormant and stays there, right?
I think so, yeah.
That's not bad, all things considered. Like, at first you think, well, that's going to be a downside because it's not attacking anything. But also, if at the end of your turn, it's not going back in your deck, so it's just going to stay there. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, so you could have Mag, 2 ATVs, and then 2 Illidari Inquisitors.
Illidari Inquisitors, yeah. Maybe you run the thing that makes everything attack it with lifesteal. I don't know that it would stay to make everything else attack it, but it would also just like not die and have lifesteal, which is not terrible either.
To have no, and it's not terrible if you draw it necessarily if you need something defensive, which if you're like only running big minions, you probably do. I don't know that we're going this far, but if you ran Crimson Expanse, you like run the Illidari Inquisitor into something. It gets damaged, you Crimson Expanse it, now you have an Illidari Inquisitor next turn.
But you're also running Crimson Expanse in your deck, so you're probably dead before turn 6.
There is that problem.
More likely you run Dangerous Cliffside just as like a defensive tool, right?
Yeah.
Because you can use them as, effectively rushers to kill things. But something interesting about Cliff Dive is it sort of works with the big demon stuff, but it doesn't say summon 2 demons. It says summon 2 minions because Shaman gets access to this too. So it is kind of a pro and a con in that way. Stuff that was nice with demon-specific things for a Demon Hunter is like you could have only your demons be big, but then you still have some other minions that are smaller. If you're running Cliff Dive, you basically are all spells or locations besides those big demons.
Which Shaman can pull off. I mean, especially you're not running this in like a Nature Shaman deck, but we have proven without a doubt that you can just run mostly spells in Shaman and be fine.
Shaman, you can do Walking Mountain, right? You can turn 6, call out a Walking Mountain for the turn, kill 4 things, and if it's alive, it'll go back in your deck to be used later.
Yeah. Or just Alakir and just get them,
Sure.
Yeah, and this also encourages you. You want a density. It's that balance of anything that gets things from your deck. If you don't want to have too few targets, because then you draw patches and then you're sad. But you also don't want too many things because you don't want to draw bad stuff out with it. So,
but if you do whiff, like they're not just out of your deck, right? So, like if let's say you run a Battlecry minion, let's just say you run like Calamos. I'm just picking a big Battlecry minion or Scar, right? Like you wouldn't ever run Scar in this deck, but I'm just saying, like, it's still going to go back to your deck. You're still going to draw it later,
Sure.
right? So it's not, as long as you don't rush into something that will kill it, then you're still going to get that minion back. You haven't really lost anything. You're just not getting any, you're not getting any additional value off of it, right? So
Yeah,
it's not the
very
end of
true.
the world.
Yeah, since it's not like they attack random enemies, it's
Yeah.
just give them rush so you can pick the attacks.
And there's 2 of them, so you'd have to low roll twice to really, if you had like one legendary minion you really wanted to run in this deck that was small, you can only hit it a maximum of 1 time. Or even if you had a couple small things, you'd be unlikely to hit both of them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And also, sometimes Yogg's going to cast this. So,
It's true for every
saying.
spell.
I wonder if there might be some kind of like Thunderbringer Shaman deck that makes use of Cliff Dive.
That's not bad. Yeah.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. And especially because it's not attack random enemies, you're not going to accidentally kill your Thunderbringer when you get it out.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, you would want to kill the Thunderbringer, right?
Oh, yeah, sorry, Thunderbringer. Yes,
Yeah.
you would want to kill the Thunderbringer. I was thinking of the Titan for some reason.
The problem is that it's likely to summon the things that you want alongside of it that you want the Thunderbringer to get out of your deck, right?
Yeah, but if you have enough density.
Yeah. I don't know.
You could have. I mean, that's where you get Beached Whale.
Yeah, there you go.
We did it. We broke the meta. Okay, excellent.
We found the summon for Beached Whale. It's Thunderbringer. That'll actually come up again in Warrior, but no spoilers there. I also love there's a card Paraglide. 3 mana, both players draw 3 cards. Outcast only you do. I actually took a second looking at this card. I'm like, that's really similar to an old card. Oh yeah, Glide. Duh.
Yeah. But I mean, it's less feels bad than Glide. I mean, yes, you can do the burn cards thing, but in general, you're not going to be screwing over your opponent as much if you're burning a couple of cards as much as if you're taking a hand of 10 cards and shoving it back into their deck and giving them 4. So, it's a little bit less abusable than the old Glide was.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is much more, you're playing this, you're trying to do this in some sort of outcast to get your card advantage. You're probably a more proactive deck than Glide, which was kind of a disruption tool. So, but then we also have the Priest Tourist, Arana Thrillseeker, 5 mana, 5/6. Damage your hero takes on your turn is redirected to a random enemy. So this could be because you attacked something because you're a demon hunter, or it could be because you're using the priest cards that actually have a self-damage theme, many of them. Wicked wrote on the show notes, stop hitting yourself.
We've gone from purple priest to black and blue priest because you're just bruised from punching yourself in the face.
I have already done a bunch of theory crafts for this, but I can't, there's like, for every one, I'm like, but there's like 40 cards I want to put in this deck, and I only have room for 30, and I don't know which ones are the best one. This is like, I think, a lot of the reason why people would run Renathal is because they just couldn't decide which, like, homebrews would run Renathal because it was like, oh, you don't have to decide which cards to cut because you can run all of them. Does it make your deck worse? Yes, but you get 5 health, so it's fine.
We can't all be Bill Gates. Like, sometimes you have to make decisions.
But probably the premier card here is in Priest, is Acupuncture, 1 mana, shadow spell, deal 4 damage to both heroes. And I think in Priest itself, that is the reward for this hitting yourself thing. It's like, yes, there's payoff cards, but also you did 4 mana, 4 damage, 2 face for 1 mana as a priest.
Or
if you're a demon hunter, you did 8.
You did 8, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe that's just the thing is you're aggro, and maybe pirates aggro, and then turn 7 you go Orana, double acupuncture, take 16.
Yeah.
Yep. And you're probably also running Brain Masseuse if you are a pirate demon hunter, 1 mana, 2/4. Whenever this minion takes damage, also deal that amount to your hero. So if you've stuck one of those and you play Orana. And if you're playing pirates, and also if you're a proactive deck, a 1 mana 2/4, you're like, yes, absolutely. There's also Nightshade Tea is a drink. Deal 3 damage to a minion. Deal 2 damage to your hero. That's a 2 mana shadow spell. And there's 3 of them.
That one I'm less enthusiastic about for like an aggro deal self-damage kind of situation, because usually deal 3 to a minion isn't what you want. I could see a world where it's like, oh, well, it's just 1 card slot, but you get to do it 3 times and it protects your stuff on board. Like maybe that's a reality we live in, but that means that we've got a lot of like aggressive decks fighting each other where you want to fight for board, because it'll be dead against slower matchups.
You could also just play Holy Smite, right? Which is one mana for 3 damage. So you really have to want either to be able to use this on a bunch of minions, or you have to want the self damage from this card, because if it's just kill a 3 health minion, there are better ways to do that in Priest than this. But I mean, this does have use cases for both of those scenarios, right? Like I'm not saying this is bad from that, and I might run it in Control to have deal 3 to a minion 3 times and then just heal up afterwards. That might be fine.
Right, and that's what I mean. Like the value is in the fact that it is 1 card that you get to do 3 times, and I think that has it, its own sort of value in different situations, right? For the aggressive deck, you're like, well, I want to kill their stuff to push my stuff through, and I don't care that I'm taking damage. And for the control deck, it's just like you get to use this 1 tool to deal with their early game, and you have healing, so you'll heal back up.
And in both of those scenarios, you might be running Hot Coals, the 3 mana fire spell, deal 2 damage to all enemies. If your hero took damage this turn, deal 1 more. I think you need a density of this stuff to want to run that. Like you probably would want to run Nightshade Tea. It seems like it might be a little awkward to activate this one as a priest. It might be more of a Demon Hunter thing because you have your face attacking.
I mean, if you have a Brain Masseuse on board, then it'll, you just run it into something and then you use the Hot Coals to finish. And this goes face, right? So it's much more for the aggro deck. Like you can just run Holy Nova if you're a control priest, right? Like, this is 3, not 2 if you can get it, but it's not 3 for 3 mana, right? It's usually 3 damage for 4 mana, which is getting outside of the realm of what you want to be paying. Like, I'm old enough to remember when Holy Nova cost 5. Right?
Yes, I remember that too. And we still ran it.
Well, not really. I mean, we ran it until we had like literally anything better to do. And even at 4, it was pretty hard to justify playing it. And this is still 4 mana, 3 damage, which is not where you want to be. Unless you're also using it to go, unless you care a lot about it going face. Like the Shadow Priest, like if an undead died, Shadow Word, whatever the Shadow Word was, that if it would do like 2 damage twice if a undead had died, right? Like that was a lot better, especially because it did it twice, not doing. This is even in a punch yourself in the face deck. I have a hard time with this, aside from the fact that it's just the 3 damage, unless you have like spell damage to pair with this, and even then, that's Priest is not known for using spell damage well. There aren't a lot of neutral spell damage minions. Like
it might work in Demon Hunter. I think you have a point about it in Priest. I was wondering with some of this, do we have like I've built a bunch of different Priest decks, but one of them was, do we have like a slower overheal Priest that also has the punch yourself in the face cards, including like the acupuncture is a finisher with Adonis, but you can use the other stuff early because you're going to heal yourself up with Geode, you're going to heal yourself up with Fan Club, so you don't care as much about punching yourself in the face. I don't know if that's a direction that we would be going, but I was thinking that might be a possibility. But in that one, I took out Hot Coals and put in Holy Nova, like 1 copy.
I mean, just to put this in perspective, this is like occasionally slightly better Hellfire, right? Which is a card that you never see played.
Well, if you're an aggro deck, it's not...
Even in Painlock. I guess it's one-sided, right? So it's still... It's not hitting your minion, so that's something. But also, most of the minions in Painlock can survive a Hellfire. So...
Yeah, it's not the same, though, right? Like, one-sided clears tend to be for aggressive strategies, right? Because you want to keep your stuff alive, so you need to have stuff. So it does feel like it is more of a Demon Hunter thing, because they can, 1 mana make that happen by hitting a minion. But I think that's fine, right? Like they have to be so careful with all these cards being in like 2 classes, basically. There's just so much to juggle.
Just one more thing on the other package. Sauna regular 5 mana, 5/5 undead taunt costs 1 less for each time your hero has taken damage on your turn. Like in Demon Hunter, that'll be 0 real fast. You probably are okay paying 2 mana for a 5/5 taunt. Like, so.
Well, and I don't know, you could theoretically, if there's even like one other thing, run Rest in Peace to resurrect Sauna regular.
Yes.
Right, like,
so why don't you tell us about Rest in Peace?
So Rest in Peace, 3 cost shadow spell. Each player summons their highest cost minion that died this game, which is just mentioned. You could like cheese out Sauna regular and then be able to resurrect it. It also goes quite nicely with the cliff dive stuff that we talked about in Demon Hunter. So there's kind of this thing going on with the whole expansion where it seems like most classes have 2 different packages, but then that works out because half of the package is in another class.
Yeah. That's really let them, I think, also be like they have packages with synergy, but it's not like Sunken City where it was very clear like you're supposed to play these cards together and this is the deck that you got in this expansion. There was some fun things to come out of Sunken City, but I know there was also discourse about packages around then. And when we have like twice as many cards basically for each class, you can really get creative with the packages.
Yeah. There is something, so this might be going way off the deep end, right? But Katrina Muerte is in standard in core, which is a 7 mana. I don't know. It's big. I don't remember how big it is.
6/8.
That says at the end, 6/8 at the end of your turn, summon an undead minion that's died this game. And Sauna regular is an undead.
Yep.
And there aren't that many other undead that you really want to play in Priest. I guess if you're doing Sauna regular, you might have to play Brain Masseuse, who's also undead. So that might get in the way.
Maybe. But you could just run a pair of Nightshade teas in something slower.
And you could run Acupuncture in a pinch too, right? So it's I feel like you probably run Acupuncture in a lot of Priest decks because it's just Mind Blast. Like we ran Mind Blast in a lot of decks, and it's a Mind Blast that you can copy with Pip. Right?
No.
And that discounts your Drifter. Oh yes, I also have several versions of one drop Priest decks, but we'll get to the Hunter cards in a minute too that care about 1 cost things. But I mean, even just if you just take what we know now, which is like Pip, and then we can get Acupuncture, we could run a Fizzle, right, to get even more Acupunctures. Like, and as long as you're not going to die the same turn, or you can heal yourself in between because you're not like your opponent's taking the damage all at once, you can do things in between because they all cost 1 mana. Like there was a deck that was just Alexstrasza Mind Blast in standard. And that was the game plan. It was just dragons and Alexstrasza and Mind Blast, and we could absolutely do that again. I am also, by the way, have not been able to play Cloning Gallery Priest in Wild since they took since they took away the ability for Holy Smite to go face, and now you can play that again, which is something that probably nobody cares about but me. But I am still excited at the possibility that I could, based on that. Now that you have to be even more careful because you're doubling damage that you don't kill yourself in the process. But as long as you don't kill yourself in the process, like that is a legitimate finisher for control priest decks that typically do not have one, which as much as people are going to be salty at the time when it happens, they're going to be a lot less salty than they would be sitting through a priest game that takes an extra 20 minutes because the priest doesn't have void in the game. Even as an aggressive priest deck, there's so many times, like when I was playing Naga Priest, I get them down to like 2 health. Yeah. Then they clear my board. And then like for 3 turns, I cannot do 2 damage to their face and then I die. Right. Like, you don't even have a pinging hero power, you know? Like, even a mage would be able to kill you from that point over 2 turns. And I just like, I mean, a mage, of course, would have a million damage spells in hand. But so just a few extra damage, like, really does make a difference, and you can copy it and you can do all of that. So I think that's just a priest card. And of course, any Arana deck is just running that card. I mean,
yeah, of course. I mean, Demon Hunter's just like, okay, that's free 8 damage. Let's go. But and the other card that's kind of a punch yourself in the face card, but it doesn't have to be, is Sensory Deprivation, which is a 6 mana shadow spell. It says summon a copy of an enemy minion. If you have 20 or less health, destroy the original. Like, you can certainly get there with the self-damage stuff, but also if you're a control priest, people are going to be hitting you in the face anyway. So you'll probably be able to get there just by existing. So that's something that it's removal, conditional removal, but it's removal plus mind control. I mean, it effectively is a mind control for 6 mana.
Yeah.
That's just slightly conditional, which is, I would play mind control if it was 6 mana. I'd be okay with that.
I mean, people play Yogg for 9 mana, right? For the mind control more than anything, and then expecting it to get cleared. Now, you do have to clear the Yogg. And
and the advantage to Yogg is that you can target elusive things, right? That's important when it comes to Unkillax.
That is important when it comes to Unkillax. And it's flexible.
But also, But also, if it's damaged, you get an undamaged copy, right? So that's also, it's a little bit different than mind control, where you're just taking it from their side of the board to yours. Like, if they've already used it to value trade, like, you get a base copy of it. You don't get the damaged one.
Or if it's a Titan,
that's not true.
You get
you get a fresh three activations.
Fresh 3 activations, because it says summon a copy of an enemy.
Copy generally has included damage and other stuff, right?
Actually, you know what? I think it probably would include the things because, so...
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So the copies work the same way as when you move a card between zones, right? So you have the 4 zones are in order, are from your deck to your hand to the board to the graveyard. And when things move forward in that axis, they keep stuff. And when they move back, they lose it. And if they move on the same level, like you mind control something on the board, or you swap hands with Theatar, they also keep enchantments and stat changes and stuff like that. So that's a great point. It is basically just a mind control. Because it's summoning a copy on the same zone. So it would keep things. If you get a copy of a minion with Power Word Synchronize, you're going back a zone from the board to your hand, and so the copy does not have any of the stuff. Just as if you had bounced it with Shadow Step, it went from the board to your hand.
Right. So,
Then we have the weird stuff. These 2 cards are just weird.
Yeah.
So actually, I am very up on Narain's Sooth Fancy, having seen it played in the John Ray Baby Bear game. I think every control priest is playing this from now on. It is a 4 mana 4/4 battle cry. Get 2 fortunes that are copies of the top card of your deck. The important thing is that those fortunes change.
Oh, okay. So it's Chameleos.
But of the top card of your deck. So you know what the top card's going to be. You can play them.
You know what the top card's going to be, and you can play 2. Okay, so it's not like you're drawing them and it gets frozen.
No.
It's actually, it's like a mirage effect.
It's a mirage. Yes.
Okay.
You get 2 mirages.
That's much better. So
that's extremely good. I mean, partially just for
that
the
is not at all clear from reading the card, by the way. Like, that is, because that is a big difference. Okay, my opinion just changed 180 degrees, because I was like, what? Like, yeah, fine, you can get 2 copies of the top card of your deck, but like, sometimes you're just gonna draw like, a Brain Masseuses and you're gonna be sad. But if you know that, so it's I'm higher on it. I am not as high as I think a lot of people are, because I, unlike a lot of people, have put Chameleos in my deck on purpose. And the problem with Chameleos is that it forces you into playing a card on a turn where you might not otherwise, right? Because you want to be able to get the value out of it. Now, it's probably less bad than it being a card from your opponent's deck.
For sure.
Right? Or your opponent's hand, where it's just going to be something random and it's not going to come around again. Like, worst case, you just draw it and you play it then. But if you do want to get the value, it's going to divert your game plan a little bit. So it's a lot better. But
I think what it'll do is it'll cause people to play suboptimally, but you just have to like not fall for the bait, right? Because you will draw, if you don't want to play the thing this turn, you will draw it next turn and then you'll have it in your hand. And you can also use Twilight Medium. This means that Twilight Medium, you can time it correctly if you've played Narain's Sooth Fancy. So Twilight Medium is a 6-mana 5/6 taunt battle cry, set the cost of the top card of your deck to 1. So if you know that you have something cool on the top of your deck, you can play her and then play your 2/1 cost if it's like if you're turning.
Because then it's going to also change the cost of the fortunes that are sitting in your hand to 1 by virtue of you having changed the top card of your deck to 1. So like that, both of those, like you're probably, I mean, sometimes you're just gonna jam Twilight Medium because it's a 6-mana 5/6 taunt, and like fine, I'm just gonna YOLO and I'm gonna take whatever the next card is and it's gonna be 1. But if you have played Narain, then you will know and you'll be able to time it appropriately such that you can get that value out of it, and that does make it a lot better in conjunction. But it's fine without. I mean, it's 6-mana 5/6 is not amazing stats for the cost, but it's also not embarrassing.
Well, it has taunt.
Yeah,
right?
It has taunt.
When it has taunt, it's not. Yeah. And I think, Sooth Fancy, even if you don't have something to go with them, is good, but this helps. We also have Overplanner, which was that neutral 3-mana 3/3, like discover 3 cards and put them on the top of your deck in order.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's probably trying a little bit too hard if you have to do that, especially knowing how this works. I think that might be thinking a little bit too hard about it. I mean, like, yeah, you're just gonna roll the dice, right? Like you play Marin now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you draw Innervates and you're sad, right? You draw like sometimes you just draw like Innervate, Miracle Salesman, Splish Splash Whelp on 10 mana and you're sad, right? Well, not anymore because it's banned. But,
oh man, I think Narain is just going to make priests just so frustrating with their little bit of extra knowledge of what they're going to draw, particularly with cards like Twilight Medium and Marin, because they'll have this situation where it's like, okay, I've got Marin and I've got this Wondrous Wand, but my next card is like not great. Oh, and oh look, that's a Reno. I'll take a 0-mana Reno. So it's going to get very, very frustrating to play against because of that foreknowledge they'll have. And I think, as you say, it will be a little bit tricky or maybe take some getting used to as the player. But yeah, there'll be times where someone's just like, oh, my top card is Reno. I'll make that one and then play it. It's
Yeah, I think, you don't want to be doing this where like you need to play the Narain Sooth Fancy before, like, and then wait for a specific card and then copy that card. Like, you're just playing this in a slow priest where you're happy to get Amonthawils, you're happy to get like almost anything. You're happy to get a removal. Now I have an extra copy of it.
Or, and this is going to be a theme as we start talking about the hunter cards that priest is going to abuse. Hi, Sidisi. It's in chat. Or you're playing Astral Automaton, and then you just will know when you play Overplanner in that deck to get the Astral Automaton to the top of your library with the fortunes in hand, and that's 2 more Astral Automatons that you get to play. Now, again, that might be trying too hard, but there is a lot of support in Hunter for making lots of Astral Automatons, which kind of brings us into the Hunter Tourist, who is Chillin' Vol'jin. Who's a 3-mana 3/3 battle cry, choose 2 minions, swap their stats, which is probably less synergistic than most of the tourists, I think. I'm not sure. I mean, there is some buffing going on in Hunter, but that's just kind of, you just run that even without getting access to the Hunter cards, just because like swapping stats is a thing that you would often want to do, especially because you often have like little things or little battlecry minions that you can just swap with, I don't know, like an Unkiliax or whatever big pain lock things have come out or whatever, and that's just kind of fine a lot of the time, especially at 3 mana. But then you get access to all the Hunter cards, and the Hunter cards also happen to care about 1-cost things, which, if you're making more Astral Automatons, then we might actually have support enough to make this viable in the hands of somebody other than No Hands Gamer.
So, also, I'm not positive, but I think if you have 2 astral automatons out and you chill Indulge in them, I think it'll swap their stats, changing their base stats, and then they'll get the astral automaton buff.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that works.
So you could make them quite large, like basically double their size, right?
Yeah, that's pretty good. I would do that.
Or is it just an aura and you would actually just change 1/2 with 1/2?
Well, you're granting the stats to the minion, but then the aura on it still gives like a persistent buff, but it's on top of whatever you've changed the stats to.
It's a green number, not a white number, though.
So like when you had like South Sea Captain or something out and you would swap the stats, I forget what effect was swapping stats for these. It would make the minion larger.
Okay, so then it probably would work. Okay.
Yeah, because it looks at the stats, like the actual numbers that are on the board, and then it sets, I think the way that it works is it sets the stats of the minion to whatever the numbers were on the other card. And then Astral Automaton still has the aura. So then it just adds those stats on top of whatever it was reset to.
Well, I'm kind of excited for some of these hunter cards, even though they're very strange. So
I'm excited for them in terms of priest, but there's also stuff to do with them in hunter. So I guess we'll start with things that might synergize more with priest, since we've just been talking about priest. So there's a number, the theme here is like parrots and like crocodiles and the sort of like jungle animals.
It's like a nature walk, right? You're going on a nature walk at the resort. It's like the Kilimanjaro safaris in the animal kingdom in Disney World, you know?
Yes, it's very
or the enchanted tiki room, I guess, is probably more accurate, but you know, whatever you want to, whatever Disney attraction you'd like this to be is what it is.
So some of the 1-drop carrying things that we care about, well, there is a 1-drop in the set itself. Catch of the Day is a 3/3 beast for 1 mana. Rush and Battle Cry summon a 2/1 worm for your opponent. So there's another 1-drop for you. You can tutor this with Trusty Fishing Rod, a 3 mana 1/2, and not just tutor, but recruit it, because it's after your hero attacks, summon a 1-cost minion from your deck. Which could also be a Crimson Clergy. And Priest has a weapon.
Or an Astral Automaton.
Or I wish you hadn't said Clergy.
Adaptive Amalgam, which in Hunter, I feel like there's something there. But yeah, Clergy, I feel like we are so desperate for draw in Overheal Priests, or like several priests, that we like literally just run this for Clergy. Like we run Chill Indulgent and this just for Clergy.
The Clergy tutor is terrifying.
If nothing else, you're getting the 1-drops out of your deck because you generally don't want to be drawing them later in the game anyway. So like at a baseline, it's just kind of doing some deck thinning for you. But if you really care about specific 1-drops coming out of your deck, then this will also fish those out of your deck for you.
Yeah, so it could be an automaton. It could be you get an adaptive amalgam and you like add keywords to it with like the chameleon mount, and you use bird watching, which is a new spell. 2 mana, discover a minion from your deck, give all copies of it +2/+1 wherever they are. And
that's good for automaton.
You could use
yeah.
So there's also Pet Parrot, 2 mana 1/1 beast, battle cry, repeat the last 1-cost card you played. So that summons you another one, or it repeats your acupuncture, or it gives you another Crimson Clergy,
your funnel cake,
or your funnel cake, although you can't direct the funnel cake. But
yeah, so at worst it's probably going to like just pay for itself, right?
And so there was a game that, let me get open the screenshot that I took of this. John Bray cooked a priest hunter 1-drops thing, because of course he did. And this was kind of the best case scenario, but even so, on turn 4 he had 2 Pylon Ticking Ziliacs, 2 Crimson Clergy, a Catch of the Day, the Pet Parrot, and a Ship's Chirurgeon. And so those were a 5/5, a 3/4, a 5/6, a 3/3, a 5/6, a 4/7, a 4/7, because there was 2 ticking pylon Ziliax on the board. And Baby Bear did not win that game. So that's like a Zarimi Priest high roll, but like on steroids. I mean, it was a similar kind of thing, funnel cakes, draw. But there's a lot that you can do. I think, you could do like an Overhill Destruction. You could do there's all kinds of other things with 1-drops. Like there's the Mixologist, there's the Grifta, gives you 1-cost things. There's the Carrion Grub, gives you a draw 2 and a 1-mana spell that you could copy. Like there were so many 1-cost things, I couldn't even decide how to make a deck out of it because there was too many possibilities. And you actually end up with a lot of like 1-cost minions that don't have battle cries because you want to recruit them. And then slightly higher cost minions that do have battle cries. And so then you can use Parrot Sanctuary, 2 mana, 3 durability location. Your next battle cry minion costs 1 less. After you play a battle cry minion, reopen this. So that means your pet parrot only costs 1.
Or you use that to make a 2. And then you could play another pet parrot to repeat. Well, that's not really good, but like you can make another 2-drop battle cry get repeated with the pet parrot, I think is how that does that work that way? Or does it not look at the cost that was paid because it's not in your hand anymore? I always get confused with when it cares about cost reduction and when it doesn't.
I think that we actually saw this in the John Burr game where he had played one of the Ziliacs for 1, but it didn't repeat with the parrot.
Okay, so it cares about the actual number on the card, not what you paid for it.
Which is probably good,
about
that you're not getting a free Drifter, you're not getting a free Ziliax that way.
Yeah.
Pip doesn't care.
But Pip...
No, Pip Super does not care.
So you could, again, with the Astral Automaton thing, have Parrot Sanctuary. I don't know if there would be enough battle cries to merit, but maybe. I
mean, Pet Parrot is good enough.
Well, right.
Copy the Pet Parrot, yeah.
If you have an Astral Automaton and a Pet Parrot in your hand and you've activated Sanctuary once, getting copies of those 2 things, quite spooky.
Yeah. Well, I guess but Pip would reset the cost when you play it, right?
Oh, you're right.
Because
yeah.
your next battle cry that you're going to play is going to be Pip. So it's not going to be able the cost would get reset back to 2 before Pip would resolve.
Okay. Just as well. But a different use case of Sanctuary that has me mildly concerned for things that get released down the line. You could just play it early and activate it and like not actually have a ton of battle cries, but have like one big expensive thing that you want to reduce multiple times. If there's any kind of combo that you can set in motion that way, whether it's like making an Alexstrasza cost 6 mana or so that you can kill them in one turn.
That's a long game you're playing there.
Well, look, but if you're just doing like that and control things, like maybe that's a possibility. Of course, you could have other battle cries that you could just sort of value reduce, but I think there's always potential when you see mana reducing stuff that there's going to be some kind of combo to come out of it.
Yeah, because importantly, it does not say this turn.
Yes.
And there is Sasquatch, 7 mana, 4/7 beast, battle cry, repeat each card you played last turn. So you could reduce that, get that down early. Although it is a little better when you've had more mana to do stuff with it. But I was looking at we could do in Priest like a big acupuncture turn and then just repeat them all with Sasquatch. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you don't generally want battle cries with that anyway, because those are just going to be base minions. They're not going to repeat the battle cries. It's just gonna act like Tess, where it summons the minions, but it doesn't give you the battle cry effect.
Yeah, so it will not. Very important if you're making a battle cry deck that you're not repeating battle cries that you played last turn. So, but I think that could definitely be a powerful card because it will, especially potentially with the warrior cards, which we'll talk about in a minute. You could repeat some pretty big stuff. But I, of course, was just looking at it like I could get a new Hedonist down, but then I can't target my heals on him nor choose the order, so that would actually probably be a bad idea because I imagine it's just like Tess.
Yeah.
But very often you're just gonna repeat a big spell, right?
Yeah.
There's two
Yeah.
of them here that are quite good.
That's true.
Well,
Yes.
I mean, if that's what you want to do, you could just use Chatty Macaw, which is a 3-mana 3/3 beast pirate that says battle cry, repeat the last spell you cast at an enemy at a random enemy. So you actually have to drag an arrow to an enemy for it to count. But that's fine. There's plenty of things that you would want to do that's targeted removal. Or sometimes even just like a power chord synchronize is fine, right? Like you just want another minion, or they only have one minion on the board. There are things that you can do there. So,
and some of those big spells that you might be wanting to repeat: Death Roll, 5 mana, destroy an enemy minion, deal damage equal to its attack, randomly split among all enemies, including face.
Yep.
And 6 mana, Furious Fowls, choose an enemy, which could be face, summon 2 3/2 birds with immune while attacking to attack it. And then you still have 2 3/2 birds with immune while attacking, which we know from past things that give immune while attacking. I can't remember what the name of that hunter card was, but it would Doggy Biscuit was so annoying as an aggro player when they would get a thing that I could just if I got behind on board and they had that thing, I could never get bored again because they would just value trade all my stuff.
yeah, or Onyxia, right? Like Onyxia had immune and it would just trade stuff off. But I mean, these are both fine priest removals. Yeah. Like I would play both of these in a control priest deck. Like those are just fine, right? Like those are reasonable. I mean, Death Roll is effectively a forged Bellowing Flames. That's more or less what it is most of the time. For something that you're willing to spend 5 mana on, it's probably going to have at least 5 attack,
Or
and possibly more.
honestly, in the aggressive hunter situation, right, you're against something that is maybe slower, that it does more of like play a single thing. You destroy that thing and get to go face for a bunch. So
Yeah, if it's their only minion, then everything goes face, right?
yeah, and then
Yeah. Hand buff
similarly, yeah, and then Furious Fowls, right? You can just choose their face. You can just get that 6 damage face. So
I mean, that's a less civilized thing to do, but I suppose you could.
It's an expensive firebolt, but then you still have 3/2 birds with immune left over. So
Yeah,
that might be annoying for them to kill.
I mean, it's Leroy. It's Leroy, right? You can't buff it, but it's Leroy.
Yeah.
For 6 mana, effectively, if you want it to be, because I mean, it's 6 damage face, right? So
Yeah, you can essentially give them charge, right? You summoning a couple things that you gave charge.
right, and I mean even better because they don't care about taunt.
Sid is pointing out we always combo it with Bunny Stomper.
I mean, not in priest you don't. Or is that neutral? That's not. Is that?
it is neutral.
Oh,
Yeah.
it is neutral.
So
Oh.
you go, the fowls go face off the spell, and then you can still rush in your immunes.
I feel like that's still what Hunter, what just Hunter is doing probably. But that
Yeah,
does make it a lot better to do it with the Bunny Stomper for sure. And that's only 2 mana, right? So that's not a lot.
Oh, wait. Actually, I don't think that works now that I think about it, because they've used their attack.
No, forced attacks don't count as attacks.
Oh, really?
Because
I
like
thought in
if
some
you
things
play
they
an
did.
Illidari Inquisitor and you hit face first, it still has your rush attack.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel like there have been times where that has not been consistent, but I suppose we'll see.
Yeah. I don't. I guess we'll have to see in practice because that has been something that's been a little bit squiggly.
You know, there were things where things would attack while frozen because they had force attacks. I can't remember what the card was that was forcing things to attack. But
yeah,
like,
but we've also had. We've also. Oh, I think Soul Mirror is what you're thinking of, Edel. I think that's what you're
maybe.
thinking of, where there were if you had rush minions that got summoned through Soul Mirror, they used up their attack from the Soul Mirror and they didn't actually get to attack again.
Sure.
Or I'm thinking of Soul Mirror because I'm thinking of priest cards. You might not be, but that's what that's the scenario I can think of where that happened. But anyway, we should get to what Hunter's going to take from Warrior, which is we have Ranger Gilly, who's the Warrior Tourist, and at the end of your turn, get a 2/3 Crocolisk, and with a Death Rattle, give all minions in your hand +2/+3. So you get he's a 4/6 by himself, so you get a 4/6 and a 2/3. Well, I guess you get a 2/3 in your hand at the end of every turn. So he's basically like a really big Whelp Wrangler. And then when he dies, he buffs everything in your hand, which goes kind of along with what some of the, I mean, Warrior's doing a whole bunch. Warrior is, it's appropriate that Warrior seems to be themed around an all-you-can-eat buffet because it seems to be sampling from a lot of different dishes in the cards that it's getting. But Warrior's doing a bunch of things, but hand buffing is definitely some of it.
One quick thing on the Furious Fowls attacking. So this was not a gameplay video, but the raunchy reveal video, I'm nearly certain, and Sid is thinking this also, that he had the bunny stomper giving it extra attacks. So we don't know for certain that that's how it works because it's not a gameplay video, but
I would like to think that they would have told them not to do that if it didn't actually work that way in game. But
yeah. So, but yes, Ranger Gilly feeds his own crocodiles, as Sid pointed out in the chat here.
Nice Steve Irwin reference.
So, yes, and there's definitely a hand buff sort of theme going on in Warrior. So we have, for example, in Warrior, Cup of Muscle, 1 mana drink, give a minion in your hand +2/+1, 3 drinks left. And
I like that one.
I mean, that like Hearthstone team, we know you can make things with the King plushes. That would be some pretty good merch. Right? The Cup of Muscle. Like, you could sell that in the gear store. I'm just saying.
Yeah, someone who's better at Blender than me needs to make a 3D model of that and then share the file. I don't know if that's like, you could actually share it out for copyright reasons, but someone should do it for themselves at least. So one thing that you might want to buff in Warrior is Line Cook, 3 mana, 2/4 tradable taunt. When you draw this, get a copy of it. So as soon as you draw it, you'll have 2. You could trade 1 back in and still have 1. You could trade both back in if you really want to. So obviously that's something that gets bigger. That gets better if you buff it.
So there's a world where this is just your only taunt, and you run the draw 2 taunts card so that you can buff this in hand, right? Trade it away, and then immediately draw it back with the targeted taunt draw. And because you get a copy, but tradable maintains buffs, you'll get a copy of the buffed Line Cook, and you can keep just like trading it back into your deck and then drawing it with stuff.
Yeah, and that is something, I don't think we'd had a chance to talk about this card since we recorded either. It came out before the rest of the Warrior cards, but the Rye Cleaver is a 7 mana 4/2 weapon, Battle Cry and Death Rattle, get a slice of bread, get 2 to sandwich any minions in between. So what this does is when you play the Rye Cleaver, you get a slice of bread on the right side of your hand, not the left side, importantly. After this weapon is destroyed, so hopefully after your next turn, you get a second slice of bread on the right, and any minions that you've drawn in between go into this 2 mana sandwich. That then when you play the sandwich, with absolutely an incredible animation, I should say, by the way, then those minions are summoned, including any buffs that they had from your hand. And Hat tweeted that important update on Sasquatch. Yes, you can repeat the sandwich.
Oh no.
I mean, you're going to need some Pepto-Bismol if that's what's happening to you, but yes.
So it is expensive, and I think you need a density of things that you might want to do with it, but there's lots of stuff that we have that is targeted draw. So, and one of the best ones is probably All You Can Eat, a new 3 mana spell, draw 3 minions of different minion types. So you can target like a Thunderbringer, you can target the new Draconic Delicacy, 8 mana 6/6 dragon with Rush, Elusive, and can only take 1 damage at a time. So in other words, with like, this is never going to die unless you have Reno or Yogg.
that Moonfang text is juicy.
Or if you make it into a 1/1 with Vol'jin, right?
Sure. But yeah, starting 6/6 and then the potential to get buffed is amazing.
I mean, we had Moonfang once upon a time, which was a 6/3. And that thing was a gigantic pain in the butt to get rid of.
Yep.
So 6/6 is a lot of butt.
Yes. Yeah. It is a lot. There's also Munsterosity.
Monstrosity.
Monstrosity.
Because it's Munster cheese.
It's Munster cheese. A thing that I clearly don't have enough experience with. 9 mana, 6/9 elemental, taunt at the end of your turn, summon an elemental with stats equal to this minion's. So obviously you'd love to get that in a sandwich because then you don't have to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you've hand buffed it. If you've got a chance to hand buff it in between, right? Because then you would just get it even bigger.
We're probably running Thunderbringer with this. You get it out of the sandwich or just run it in general. You can get the Beached Whale. You can get the Monstrosity.
We're probably running Safety Expert too, right? Because that's a 10 mana minion that does things when it dies.
Sure.
So that's probably, I mean, again, if you need a third minion type, right? I mean, Beast could be it, but Mech could also be it, right? So, and then you could, because you're probably running things like Chemical Spill in a deck like this too, right? Because you're running a bunch of big things. You're gonna need, like, you can't rely on getting the Rye Cleaver 100% of the time. Right, because it's a one of in the deck, so you're gonna need other things. I mean, you also do have Food Fight, which is a 3-mana spell that summons a 0/6 entree for your opponent, and when it dies, you summon a minion from your deck. So there's some other recruit things going on, but you're gonna want to have more than one way to get the big minions out of your deck or out of your hand without having to pay the mana for them.
There's also Part Scrapper if you run mechs. As a way to get them down, because you do want to make it so that you're not 100% relying on just recruiting stuff from this. Yeah,
there is more to life than sandwiches.
Yes.
Well, and if you're doing the Thunderbringer stuff, right? Beached Whale again. That's a good one. Even if you're doing Chemical Spill with that, right? Taking 5 instead of 10 is better.
Yeah, 4/15 is still fine.
And I wonder if the hand buff stuff and the recruit from deck stuff is maybe like not even quite the same deck, because with hand buff stuff, like we've seen with hand buff Paladin, you're happy buffing smaller things sometimes, like the undercooked calamari. You don't want to recruit this out. It's a 4-mana 3/4 beast. Battlecry, destroy an enemy minion with attack less than or equal to this minion's. So you don't really want to recruit that, but you could play it with something like Char, deal 7 damage to a minion, give a minion in your hand stats equal to the excess damage. Like, that's a lot of removal, potentially.
But also, like, so the Rye Cleaver you're playing on 7, right? So you're on 8 mana when you're playing All You Can Eat. So you still have enough mana to play the Undercooked Calamari before you swing with the Rye Cleaver a second time and break it. So you don't necessarily, you have some agency there, assuming that somebody doesn't Viper you, right? To be able to, just get the fillings in the sandwich that you want. Right, you don't want to, you don't want to ruin the sandwich by having some ingredients that don't mix with the rest of the day.
Yeah, I love cards like All You Can Eat when they've sort of designed 2 things, not even in the same set, but that can benefit from. Like, we have other menagerie stuff for a more aggressive playstyle in Warrior, and now you've got this big stuff where it's like, okay, you can do All You Can Eat to tutor the big stuff for your Rye Cleaver, which, again, always remember with important weapons right now that we do have the 1/2 that draws a weapon, right?
And we also have actually the Titan draws a weapon if you don't want to run anything small.
Sure.
The Titan actually does draw a weapon and curve into Rye Cleaver, which is something I forgot until someone pointed it out on the Discord today.
And it's fine if you recruit it. Like, that's completely okay if you recruit it. One other thing that I saw, which was funny, is that someone asked Ridiculous Hat if it was okay to run Corehound in this deck, because then you could answer the question of, is a hot dog a sandwich? And at least part of the time the answer is yes.
Oh, God.
There was lots of various sandwich jokes in it. This whole thing is very much the kitchen of the resort.
Yeah, and we don't have them yet for this episode, but you know who also has big minions a lot of the time? Druid. And Warrior is touristing into Druid with Ham the Hungry, 6-mana 3/3 taunt. Druid Tourist, of course. At the end of your turn, eat a minion in the enemy's deck to gain +2/+2. What? It's a mutinous for their deck. Like I think it's probably going to be less about that and more about whatever druid cards you're getting.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting effect.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, right? Like, again, it's worth reminding that if you burned a card from your deck, it's just as though it was at the bottom and you didn't draw it, right? I think it's worth remembering that, because this is not getting it. Like, mutinous was taking it out of your hand, right? Which is a very different scenario than when it's taking it out of your deck. Because, like, when it's taking it out of your hand, you're actually denying resources that you potentially had available. When it's taking it out of your deck, you could have just not drawn it, right? It still feels bad because you're going to see what's there and you're going to know that you're not drawing it. And sometimes if you're playing a combo deck, it's going to be the combo card that you need.
Mhm.
But you could also just not draw that card. But I mean, against an Odin Warrior, against against, if you get rid of a Reska against a Death Knight, that's going to feel pretty good, right? I mean, they'll just generate 3 more, but that's beside the point. Like those types of things, like there will be some times where that's relevant, but a lot of the time it could have just been the 30th card and it wouldn't matter, right?
Yeah. Although, if Druid is gaining any acceleration, then that means Warrior is getting that acceleration as well, which means you could have Ham coming down earlier. And that could snowball in a very frustrating way.
Undercooked Ham is dangerous.
Yeah, if you can't clear this, that does start to be a problem. I mean, this card is going to see play because it's going to be the Druid's Tourist, assuming that there's anything in Druid that you want to play, which I think is probably a fair assumption. So, therefore, it will tilt people.
Yeah, that's what's going to be most infuriating, right? Is they might be running it not even because they want to hit anything in your deck, but just because it's the Druid Tourist, so it automatically sees play if there's any relevant Druid cards. Like the Tourist cards, I'm sure are going to be some of the most played in this expansion just because people want access to something in that other class.
Yeah.
And in the case of this one, you're going to see it a lot. And sometimes it's going to make you real mad.
Yeah, it's an interesting effect to have put on the... I mean, I guess because it's on the Tourist means that Hunter doesn't get access to it, so at least there's not 2 classes that are playing it, but...
Sure.
It does mean that it comes out all the time. And, I mean, the one Druid card... Well, one of the Druid cards that we do know about already is the location that gives you taunt minions. When you... And then you can gain armor to reopen it. That might actually not be terrible in a warrior deck that mostly has big minions. Kind of like in Big Spell Mage, you run minions that discover spells that are smaller so that you have small spells to play while you're waiting for your big spells because you can't run them. Right. It would be kind of similar. You can get something small or another copy of a big taunt minion from the location. I don't know if that makes it in, but it might be a possibility.
I mean, I guess we can say without knowing what the cards are, I'm pretty sure we can just say pretty definitively that whatever the Druid cards are, they're probably going to be infuriating, and we're probably not going to want to see them in one class, let alone 2. So.
that is always how I feel about Druid. So it seems
that's a safe thing to predict.
Next week, what card superlatives? Edel's going to pick a Druid card. I don't think anyone's going to bet against me on that one.
It's a pretty sure bet.
Yeah. That'll pick a Druid card. I'll pick a Rogue card. Everything will be right with the world. It'll be fine.
But that's going to do it for our cards. So we have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at Concede.com, where you can also find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/CoinConcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Check out our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. And write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at CoinConcede. And if you would like some CC swag, head on over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. CoinConcedes?
I will coin concede to our listener series finalists, World 8 and SSJ5 Goku. Good luck to both of you. They're about to play their match for the listener series title. So, and also coin concede to everyone who participated in this expansion. And if you have been listening to this and didn't have a chance, we run them every expansion. So just the best way to know about it. We will announce it on the podcast, of course, and also the Discord is a good way to hear about them. So I really appreciate everyone who made that a really fun event.
And I'm going to concede to Ben Hartstone, who was kind enough to allow us once again to use all the images that we've been using for the class cards on the stream today. I'm also going to concede to Matt at Arms, who I bought a card off of him for one of my commander decks, and he was nice enough to include a little bonus of an alt art of the commander that I'm putting in that deck, who has got like a really cool cartoony profile, and it looks very cool in my deck box and very intimidating. So I appreciate that. He is a good egg. So and Matt, I hope you are getting your well-deserved rest from talking into a microphone every week.
And I'm going to concede to the two of you and to our patrons. Those of you getting the edited version of this show will not have noticed, but I dropped out in the middle because my CPU overheated. So that's fun. That was a first. Thank you for your patience, everyone who got the raw audio and had to sit through that.
So the patrons got a little mini bonus episode of Baldur's Gate 3 talk in the middle there while we were waiting for Edel to come back. So that's what you get on the raw. That's what you get with your $2 a month to get onto the paid tier. You get access to a random Baldur's Gate discussion for 15 minutes while Edel's rebooting your computer. All right, but that is going to do it for this week. So until next time, keep calm and don't overdo it on the sandwiches. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
All life must end. I yield for now. I concede. Well fought. I concede.
You win this one.
The victory is yours.
You have bested him.
I give up.
You win this one, friend. You win this time. I choose death.